Is your team not performing well? Is morale low and turnover high? Are you falling further behind the competition? I'm here to help. I'm your host, Shani, and this is the Leadership Show, where business strategy and culture finally meet, and we make the long-awaited shift from rhetoric to results. I promise I'm not your typical boring leadership consultant, and I will help you get your shift together. Let's do this. Hey, Leadershifters, welcome to another episode of the Leadership Show. Are you looking to access your inner gladiator or to enroll your team in finding their inner gladiators? If you are, then you are going to want to hang tight for our discussion with today's guest, Dan Nitro Clark.
Hey, Shani, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for the work you're doing, and I can't wait to get into it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Leadershifters, just wanted to give you an ever so abbreviated bio of all the cool things that Dan has done over the years. It would take the whole podcast to really review everything.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. This is how you're going to get the good stuff out of me, right? By buttering me up. It's part of your technique.
Will get me everywhere, right? Well, so you guys know I'm a huge football fan, and I use football analogies all the time when I'm talking about leadership. And Dan played football at San Jose State University, and then he played for the LA Rams, and then I believe in Europe. And then he shifted into acting, and many of you probably know him from many seasons of American Gladiator, where he was Nitro, hence the nickname. Let's see. So actor in other series as well, author.
So the shift went from being in front of the camera, Shani. That was the first it went from professional athlete. That was my identity. And then I got really super, I would say lucky, but I don't believe in luck. You know, I believe in hard work creates opportunities and putting yourself in the right situations.
Absolutely.
But I got a TV show that was also athletic. So I had to shift in front of being a on-camera person. And then from on camera, a sports show, I shifted into more theatrical and television roles. Then I shifted into, like this 20-year shift into writing.
Yeah.
I felt like I wanted to redefine myself. And like Hamilton, which I just saw this weekend in New York, I knew the way to do that was by creating my own personal, books and writing. So I shifted into writing, then into speaking, and then into owning another business, which was an entrepreneurial effort. So there's been a lot of different shifts.
Absolutely. And that's what I think is so admirable about you is the interesting shifts that you've made. And a lot of my listeners and clients, God, wish they could even do a fraction of the things they could do. And part of my mission is to encourage people, you can do anything you fucking want to do if you just have a vision for it and start putting a plan into concrete action. So let's get to it. Let's start with.
I think what you said is exactly right there. People's potential is unlimited. And what is the number one thing that gets in people's way? It's fear. Well, it's upstairs. Yeah. So I always say it's always an inside game. Everything is an inside game. To master this life, you have to master what's going on in here. When you master the inside game, the results start to show on the outside. And, for me, and what I do now is I also help coach people. And I think the number one thing, like I said, that gets in the way is the doubt, the fear, the anxiety, and that negative voice inside your head. So one of the first shifts I'd like your listeners to take is, as I lost my train of thought.
Shifting the listeners you want to take about the inner game.
Yeah, the inner game. I want them to take control of their inner game. That's the first shift that I want them to take into mind.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing that you had to learn that earlier in your career because football, while yes, people have to be talented, you have to be fast, you have to catch, you have to block, whatever. A lot of why various football teams are successful is the inner game of each player and the inner game of the gestalt of the team. So can you talk about your experience with that?
The transition. Yeah. So I say this, I say that sports taught me about life. right? It taught me teamwork. It taught me hard work. It taught me a work ethic. It taught me how to rise to the next level by putting in more work. So it taught me about a lot of things, but I had a heart attack 5 years ago. So I say sports taught me about life, but almost dying taught me how to live. And that was the latest shift for me from, life to learning how to live a life that I wanted to live.
Yeah.
A little esoteric there.
Well, no, let's go there. I mean, people look at you and say, you're athletic, you're fit, right? How could you have a heart attack? So what gives?
Well, I've learned this. I learned that we can't always choose the path that we walk, but we're going to choose we can choose how to walk it. So what I mean is a lot of times there's no reason. There's no explanations. Bad things happen to good people.
All the time.
We just have to accept that. And then we can accept and choose how we want to respond.
Yeah.
Right. So lying in the hospital, I remember the day after the heart attack, after I had surgery, and I was depressed. I was at one of the lowest points in my life. And I completely lost the identity of who I was.
Sure.
Right. I was an athlete. I was a fitness expert. Almost all my business and stuff revolved around that.
Right.
And laying there, I was just, depressed. And I was asking myself, why me? Why me? Why me? Why did this happen to me? And that led me down the path to nowhere. And it wasn't until I changed the question that I asked myself, instead of saying, why me? I started to ask myself, what can I be given the circumstances? And when I asked myself a better question, I started to get better answers.
Absolutely.
And all these ideas started to come forward. I could be someone who showed people how to make a comeback. I could be someone who showed people how good life could be after a heart attack. Or I could be someone who showed people how to turn a tragedy perhaps into a gift of inspiration for others. So a lot of a shift goes to asking yourself better questions.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that was the major shift after the heart attack that puts me to where I am now. Most of my life, I chased gratification. What I could eat, what I could taste, what I could buy, this momentary gratification. Well, the thing about gratification, if you're on a steady diet, it's never very fulfilling. Because the moment that you achieve something, at least this is how I was on that wheel of success. The moment I achieved something, well, I've got a house, great, a big house, great. Oh, now I need a vacation house. I was rarely ever satisfied. I was looking for the next bite before I'd finished the last bite.
Absolutely. And that's a common disease among high achievers, right? We're never happy with what we have, always looking, well, when I just have this, when I just have that. And that's exactly backwards. It's like, no, I got to be happy first, and then I'll attract what I want, versus I'll be happy when.
Like we talked about in the beginning, it's an inside game.
Yeah.
So I was so out there busy.
Go ahead.
I was so out there busy chasing that gratification that I rarely practiced gratitude. I rarely practiced being thankful. I rarely practiced appreciation. And what, the near-death experiences taught me is that gratitude and appreciation, at least for me, are the gateway to happiness. When I practice gratitude, when I practice appreciation, when I practice the simple practice of setting up and designing my daily routine, where I have things, little maps, little posts, little goalposts that I put out for me every day, that if I do this, this, and this, that'll mean I'm happy. When I set up and design my life that way, I can tell you, Shane, happiness beats a path to my door every single day. And I realized for me, it's not me. It's always me failing the tools, and the tools never failing me.
Love that. Right. It's a good way to put it. And I just want to pause for a second, because the last few minutes of conversation is really worth pausing on and addressing folks who are listening or watching. Where in your life, whether it's professionally or personally, are you asking yourself the wrong question? Maybe the question has a bit of a victim-y or a martyrdom kind of feel to it. And if you just shifted the question you're asking to something that's more empowering and more future focused, what's possible for you by just asking that different question? So, situations where you need to make a comeback, or, you know, you're thinking like things aren't going your way, perfect opportunities to shift that inner game. Okay.
Yeah, and that inner game, Shane, again, instead of why me, what could I be given the circumstances? What could I do given the circumstances? And when you make that shift, oh man, Shane, do the answers come forward. You know, you've put your aim and your focus in a new direction. And a lot of it, like you said, is a shift of asking yourself better questions. Never fails me. Whenever I'm stuck, I ask myself a better question. And another tool that I use a lot with the people I coach is, instead of I have to, and it's a little shift, and I know you know this, is I get to.
Yep.
Right. So people, one of the things they talk about is time, how busy everybody is, right? How much they don't have time. I'm so busy, I can't do this. Oh man, I have to take my kid to school in the morning. And I said, I have to? I said, you mean you get to spend 15 or 20 minutes with this creature that you love more than anything else on the planet? And they're like, oh, I've never thought of it that way. Or if someone's working, and that's a shift. Or if someone's working on a project, oh, I've got to start to spend time on my book. And I said, wait a second, you've got to, you have to, you get to. You have the opportunity to put your lives and thoughts and feelings and your expertise on a piece of paper to share out in the world. That perspective, that shift changes everything.
For sure. And it's amazing how many people don't go there first, right? It's, and we're so lucky in this country. I mean, I don't know about you, I've traveled all around the world. And I mean, you don't even have to have traveled all around the world to just turn on the news and you see some of the travesties that are happening in other places. And we are so fortunate. You're right. Almost all of us, we get to. We don't have to. It's like living a great life shouldn't feel like an obligation.
Yeah, when you start to go from I get to instead of I have to, it changes obligations into opportunities.
Yep.
And it's just it's a little shift of perspective. And I find, you know, for me and the people I deal with, the high performers, it's all about those little shifts in perspective that make the difference. So many of your listeners are wanting to go out and hit that home run every single day. Go out and get a base hit. Go out and hit a single. The way our brains work, right? Our brains work by having positive reinforcements, little wins. There's so much science behind this. That's what creates motivation.
Yep.
Go out and get that little win today. Celebrate that win, and it'll give you the motivation and courage. I say motivation is a bunch of garbage. It's having tools that inspire you, having tools that you can count on that propel you to take action when you don't want to, when you don't feel like it.
So speaking of winning, can we talk about American Gladiator?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I know people would kill me if I didn't ask you, what was that experience like? Just what's the craziest thing that happened during your tenure with the show?
Every day was crazy. You know, so I came from a football background. So the publicity and the traveling and having a light shined on me pretty bright wasn't such a new experience, but I was always part of a team. You know, in college, I was pretty darn good. In the pros, I was never really got the light shined on me like American Gladiators did. And I remember, you know, the first day I knew it was going to be something was after we shot the first season and they were doing the promo. And I drove out of my little apartment in Studio City, California, because at that time I was living in an apartment. It was like 1,200, 900 square feet, whatever it was. And I pulled out around the corner and I look up and there's this huge billboard, you know, with my picture on it, you know, American Gladiators coming to you live, you know, that I was like, holy crap, that's me. This means something. And then it was just a whirlwind of activity and stuff that was super crazy. You know, I would tell you, you know, from meeting 3 presidents in one night, you know, at a function, to sitting in a restaurant and having with a girlfriend and having Steve Martin come over to my table and like, excuse me, sir, aren't you that gentleman from the American Gladiators? And I'm like, oh my God, Steve Martin, I'm a huge fan of yours. He goes, yeah, there's another friend of mine I want you to introduce me to. And he takes me over to the table where he's sitting with his wife and Dustin Hoffman.
Oh.
So there were things like that were just so eye-opening and so amazing, going on tour and selling out Madison Square Garden, and running out onto the floor at the most famous arena in the world and having, 17,000 people, saying Nitro, Nitro, Nitro.
Oh, can't even imagine. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So it was like an amazing experience, and I think the challenge, for me has always been to, how do you find happiness and fulfillment and inner peace and still feel successful when it's not in front of 16 or 17,000 people, right? So, and I know a lot of your listeners have probably had bigger monetary or financial successes in their life, and they're in a little bit of a setback. So a lot of my work going forward is finding that happiness and fulfillment in the internal things.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because the odd thing, Shani, was when I had all that success, when I was on the cover of TV Guide, when I was doing Good Morning America, there was still a part of me that was empty and sad and alone. And all that success that I had could not fill it. And my life's work, the next 25 years, were dedicated to trying to find meaning and purpose and fulfillment in my life.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that two big things, connection and giving back.
Yeah. So connection, giving back, gratitude practice. And again, calming the beast.
Yeah.
That's what I do now. I help people to calm the beast so they can unleash the beast. I had to calm that beast of doubt, fear, anxiety, of not being worthy, not being good enough, because those things would paralyze me. When I first started doing Facebook Lives, I started a Facebook Live show, and I was like, oh my God, people, what are people going to think? I used to go.
I can't do another take if I fuck up.
Well, no, I don't worry so much about being live. I worry more about my fear is like a lot of what will people think. Here's a guy who used to, be in front of, sold out Madison Square Garden. And now, you're venturing into something new. And there's that negative voice in your head, that fear, that doubt, that worry about what they will think. Wow, I've got, 7 people listening, whatever. I've got 700 people listening. So a lot of that fear, and I think a lot of people, almost everybody I deal with has that fear. And what we were talking about earlier, the first thing people have to do is to take accountability and ownership and move into that fear, to move into that vulnerability, to take action when they're not sure of the results, and to focus on a singular purpose. So before American Gladiators, it was all about you kind of drunk with adoration. Right. And I always thought that adoration and all applause was love.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it wasn't until I made the shift to realize that everything is an inside game, right? That it's a mind game, and to find that love within myself, for myself, that I had the biggest shift, which allowed me to have the inner peace, the happiness, the connectedness that I think that we all want.
Yeah. What you're saying, I think, resonates so much with so many people, especially the folks that I interact with. A lot of people that are my clients, or, just even in, sort of my sphere of influence, have had really big careers in whatever field it is. Maybe it's in investment banking or law or acting or whatever it is. And at a certain point, they're done. They want act B or act 2, right? Plan B, act 2. And a lot of people don't know how to successfully make the shift in the identity from, oh, well, I'm an investment banker, I'm a lawyer, to what's next. Because it's like you spend decades with this certain identity. And I think it's so humanizing. And I thank you for being vulnerable and sharing this, because everyone goes through this, whether they want to admit it or not.
Right. No, I've had so many shifts in my life, and I have a saying, don't give up on you just because they gave up on you.
Yeah. Right.
And
well, all that matters is what you think of you. It doesn't really matter what other people think at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have trusted people that their opinion matters to me. Right.
Sure.
But Yeah, you know, if I could list for you every time I failed, every dream that I had that wasn't realized, every goal that wasn't met, I couldn't get out of bed in the morning, right? I could not get out of bed in the morning. But, you know, my shift has come from, again, understanding the inner game and understanding that the new success is inner peace.
Yes.
Because inner peace is what I want more than anything else, right? I want to wake up and feel like my heart's open. I want to go to sleep at night knowing that I was acted throughout the day as a human being that I strive to be.
Yes.
Right. So that now that I guess the first step for me was to redefine success. You know, I've had the German cars in the driveway, and this was even after Gladiators. I've had the $5 million home, and there's still something empty inside of me, you know, and it was and I think a lot of it was, Shani, having the heart attack. And in that moment when I was at the hospital from the ambulance, and I asked the doctor, I said, am I going to die? And the doctor said to me, and I was hoping, like, you know, get a pat on the back, you know, we got you. He just says, you know, I don't know. We're going to do the best we can, but we need to get you in surgery. And there was like a 15-minute gap between they got me into surgery. And in that time, there was only one thing that was important to me. I didn't care how many cars I had. I didn't care how many homes. I didn't care about the plaques on my wall. All I wanted were the people that I loved close to me. And then I wanted them to know how much I loved them. And I'm so grateful for that experience, because it gave me the answers to the test of life before the test. So now all these principles and all these ideas that I felt in those moments, you know, about what happiness, what inner peace was, what success was, I've gotten a chance to go and study those and apply those to my life. Right. You know, and I rebuilt my life based upon those principles. And as a way to remember what was important to me, I wrote a book, my second book, called F Dying. And
and then there's a subtitle to it too, if you wouldn't mind saying what it is.
How Cheating Death Kicked My Ass into Living, Loving, Learning, Loving, and Living My Best Life.
Yes, love that.
And that was the key. And yeah, that was, and it's, that book has been so empowering for a lot of people, because it wasn't, you know, about success principles. It was how to live life, how to be happy, how to fulfill fulfillment, how to have inner peace, how to have connectedness, because that's what I strive for. Because I've had everything. I've had such a great life, and I've had everything. But again, I've had everything, and a lot of times it felt like nothing. Yeah. And now I have a good amount, right? Now I have a good amount, but I have something that that I own, and that's my inner peace.
Yeah, and you can't put a price tag on that.
Yeah, and just to be clear for your listeners, it's not I walk around like, you know, in bliss all the time. It's I still get angry when someone cuts me off. I still start to flip them off, and I still have you know, tense interactions. I'm just able to resolve them quicker and get back to that place that I want to be. In more situations, I've been able to respond instead of react.
Yes.
And I'm always learning.
I just taught a class on that to a big group of leaders in a Fortune 50 technology company last week.
Oh, excellent. So yeah, you know exactly what I'm saying. And
yes,
when I have that inner peace, and I have the knowledge that inner peace, there's always a place that's peaceful inside of me. And I'm a big, huge believer in meditation and visualization. I have everything good in my life because of these and the work I put forward. So when I know that regardless of what's going on here, there's a place of deep inner peace in me, and I'm used to connecting with that, man, does that help me in those situations? And another thing is, Shani, is I realize just for a moment that it's not all about me.
Right.
That's the hard part.
Well, that's actually a good segue to the other thing I wanted to ask you about, which is your nonprofit. I think it's called 10,000 Pounds.
Yes. No, that's not mine. That's an older one that I don't follow anymore.
Okay. I read about it. It's in somewhere.
Yeah. The last 5 years, or last 6 years, most of my philanthropy has gone to talk about curing autism, where I've raised $300,000 for them. So that's where the philanthropy has gone.
And is that raised through the Gladiator Rock and Run?
Yes, it's one of my businesses. Yeah, exactly. So I have an obstacle adventure race that I started 8 years ago. And I wanted to bring something to people that I wanted to do in a physical sense that wasn't just 5K or a 10K. So I did that for 10 years. And now I'm shifting into, full-time public speaking, writing, seminars, because I get such joy and satisfaction and happiness when I can use stuff that I know, which seems like second nature to me, and I can help people transform their lives. I cannot tell you how much satisfaction and happiness that brings to me when, someone's grateful and they thank you, when you're coaching or working with them, like, oh my God, I didn't know if I was going to make it. I started working with you and I've been the happiest I've been. My wife is, ecstatic. There's been such a change. My parents, my friends, everybody sees it. And that just says, wow, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm here.
So if anybody listening or watching is interested in working with you or getting in touch with you, how would they do that?
They can't. They just can't. It's impossible. That's part of their work for them. If you really want to find, if you really want to seek, if you really want to find, you must seek.
Okay. Fair enough.
You can find you. I'm on social media though. Dan Nitro Clark on Instagram and on Facebook. And then I'm going to be starting a giveaway. My book's been out for 18 months. It was a bestseller. And what I'm going to do now is I've decided, the book was never dying. My second book was never about making money. It was about putting a message out in the world. So like in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to just give the book away for free to everybody. So it'll be on my website, dannitroclark.net. So look for that and look for me on social media. You'll be able to get a copy of my best. And it's not like a little ebook. It's like 240 pages. I'm sorry. There's reading.
No, it sounds like you've got a lot of interesting stories to share that would easily fill 240 pages.
Yeah. So a lot of times people say, here's my free book and just pay me $9.95 for shipping.
Shipping and handling.
Yeah, right. That always kills me. I look at a lot of the brand gurus, advice gurus. Here, get my free book, and it's $9.95. For shipping.
No, I know your book is the real deal, as I feel mine is too.
Yeah. So I'll be giving a digital download free of the whole book as a PDF file for people. I think starting in 2 weeks. Or probably by the time this podcast airs, you can just go find me at F Dying. I will ask for your email so I can be in contact with you so you'll know.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Leadership Show today. It was great to have you.
I had such a good time. I feel like we're kindred spirits and we really connect. And I appreciate your advice and the wisdom that you're putting out into the world.
Likewise. Absolutely. I feel the same way. And Leadershifters, to close off, let's just recap some of the amazing things that we talked about today with Nitro. Ask better questions. You're going to get better answers so that you can respond instead of react. Start to shift your language from I have to I get to, right? I get to, because everything's a choice in life. Start celebrating those little wins, right? We don't always have to hit the home run. Singles and doubles are just as much reason to celebrate. And think about, if you are kind of on the back end of your career, what is most important to you, and how are you finding connection and relationship, and how are you giving back so that you get that sense of inner peace, so that you don't have regrets? Because as many of you who followed me for a long time know, one of my other taglines is live and lead with no regrets. Sorry, what was that last thing you said?
Well, I said inner peace is the new success.
Inner peace is the new success. Amen. Amen and namaste. Thanks again, Dan. Leadershifters. See you next time.